Hey everybody, I'm Sean. Welcome to The Inside Stuff. Now, we're a group of like-minded individuals who are just trying to cut through all of the financial noise out there and break it down for you and your personal economy into the top 5 most important things that you need to be paying attention to right now. Before I forget, if you're interested in getting a copy of everything we're talking about, go to theinsidestuff.org. That's theinsidestuff.org. And you can download a free copy of everything that we're discussing. While you're there, you might want to check out The Inside Circle. Now, if you're interested in learning more about the exclusive deals that I'm involved in, click on The Inside Circle, fill out the information, we'll contact you to see if it's a fit. All right, let's jump right into the information that you need to be paying attention to right now, today. Okay, the first one that I want to point out is from a global economic trend analysis blog that we look at every once in a while. The title is Rumors on Mark-to-Market Accounting and Loan Loss Provisions. What is the real story? Okay, they're focused on the energy sector, and primarily because bank loan loss impairments related to the energy sector are set to explode. Okay, banks are ready to lose a ton of money in the energy sector. And it goes on to say banks have been making drilling loans to companies that are only profitable when oil prices are above $50 a barrel. And the price of oil just closed under $30 a barrel for the first time in about 12 years. So you got to read this article. Again, go to theinsidestuff.org and download a copy of all these links to the articles so you can get into them and read about them. But this is fascinating information. You know, it seems like the next bubble that's about to burst is the oil and gas industry, and in particular, the debt that is against those projects, the debt that has been borrowed from the banking system to drill oil or do these fracking projects. And it's just not working out for anybody. I've got tons of clients who are invested heavily in oil and gas. They haven't made a dime in over 2 years. I mean, they make a little bit of income, $100 here, $200 there, of barely scraping by income after investing $1 million or more into the project. So they're not profitable. They're laying off workers left and right. And it looks like these loans are about to go bust because the companies are going to begin to start defaulting on their loans just because of the price of oil, because the price of oil is not profitable at $30 a barrel. It's only profitable, and they can only repay the loans at $50 a barrel. Okay, makes sense? All right, let's go on to the next one. Next one is the periodic table of commodity returns. I thought this was fascinating. It's an interactive chart that, again, go to theinsidestuff.org and download these links to these articles. Play around with this stuff. I mean, check out what the best performers were, the worst performers were, what the least volatile commodities were, what the most volatile commodities were. You can basically segment this whole periodic table by year and by commodity. They've got everything from aluminum, copper, gold, oil and gas, lead, nickel, palladium, platinum, silver, wheat, and zinc. So you can play around with those numbers and click on them and see what the real returns were for any given year dating back to 2006. Really interesting stuff. All right, next article I wanted to cover for you was, again, from the same blog that I go to. It's about economic trend analysis. The title of the article is Full of Bull. Wall Street Analysis, S&P 500, Predicted Gains versus Actual Gains from the year 2001 to the year 2015. Now, this is an extremely important topic to talk about because it directly affects your income at retirement. You see, you can build the largest nest egg in the world, all right? But if you're accustomed to living on a certain income level and you start pulling down or spending down your income at retirement, and there's any volatility or negative losses during the time that you're withdrawing or spending down that money, you're spending that money down at a much faster pace, and you're going to run out of money much faster than you ever thought possible. Now, the article goes on to talk about how overly optimistic Wall Street forecasters are year in and year out. And he talks about statistical ideas And the problem with statistics is that they can be made up. The old statistical joke about averages. Statisticians always talk about averages, right? And so the old joke is that 3 statisticians went bow hunting, and the first statistician shot 10 feet to the left of the buck, and the other statistician shot 10 feet to the right of the buck, and the third statistician jumped up and said, "Hey, we got him." That's what happens when you talk about averages. You can be way off the mark, but the average is meaningless. This guy goes on to talk about the forecasters and how they're full of bull, whether it's, they're literally tossing coins on whether the S&P is going to come in above or below their average forecasts. They all have projections and predictions from 2001 all the way through 2016 of what the S&P is predicted to do and the predicted gain. Then they show you the actual S&P and the actual gain and the difference between the two. This is a fascinating chart if you want to see. But here's the real problem. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. Okay, now what financial planners typically talk about is consistent returns or averages. All right. They don't talk about fluctuating returns and how that impacts your retirement portfolio or your nest egg at all. All right. So what we're looking at here is a nest egg of about $1 million. We're looking at a 30-year retirement. Okay. And this is the best 30 years of the S&P 500. Now, during the best 30 years of the S&P 500, you can see here at the bottom right, it was from 1970 to 1999. During that time frame, the S&P averaged almost 15% return. Okay? Again, we're talking average rates of return. Now, if you were to get an average rate of return of almost 15% every year for the next 30 years in retirement, and you were pulling out $100,000 a year from your $1 million nest egg, or 10% of that nest egg every year, you would never run out of money. Because if you're averaging 15% return and only spending it down at about 10%, you're still coming out ahead. In fact, after 30 years, you can see the total balance grows to $15 million. But that's not what actually happens, is it? Here is the real returns of the S&P during those best 30 years of the S&P's performance from 1970 to 1999. And you can see in 1970 that it was up 4%, 71 it was up 14%, 72 it was up almost 19%. Then in 73 and 74 it dropped 14.79% in 73, and in 1974 it dropped 26.5%. Then it was back up, then it was back down. So how did these fluctuating rates of return realistically work with your retirement savings? Let's take a look. If you got that $1 million nest egg and you're still wanting to spend it down at a rate of 10% or $100,000 a year, even though it averaged 15% during the best 30 years of the S&P 500, when you put the actual rates of return during the best 30 years of the S&P 500 against withdrawing that money in retirement at $100,000 a year or spending that money in retirement at $100,000 a year, you can see that the volatility, what happens is the first few years, your account balance actually grows. But during the next 2 years, you have a significant decrease and you're pulling out $100,000 a year. So year one, you pull out $100,000 a year and your account balance drops from $1 million to $935,000. In year two, it actually goes up to $955,000. In year three, you're back up over $1 million because of positive returns. But watch what happens in the next 3 years when you're pulling out $100,000 a year, spending that money down in retirement, and you have fluctuating returns. What happens over the next 3 years is that $1 million nest egg drops down to $550,000. It's literally cut in half. Okay? How are you feeling about your retirement now? And according to this chart, if you watch the actual returns of the S&P during the best 30 years of retirement, and you were to spend down your retirement nest egg at $100,000 a year or 10% a year, you would run out of money in year 14. That's the problem that nobody wants to address right now. So the point is, make sure that you're paying attention to actual rates of return each year in your portfolio versus just averages. If a financial planner or an advisor or an analyst starts to talk about averages, turn off the TV or walk out of the room. That is not the right fit for you because they don't understand the impact to you and your income during retirement. If you're interested in finding a solution to this, go to theinsidestuff.org, click on this information. You can check out this chart, read it. They've actually got projections for year 2016. You got to see this information. It's unbelievable what they're predicting, okay? And this is by every major banking institution out there. Not every financial institution believes this, but every banker believes that they're going to see huge gains in the S&P 500 this year alone. But it's, again, we don't live in a linear world anymore where you can forecast future results. We live in an exponential world right now where anything can happen and it can happen overnight. So can the S&P 500 go up 25%? Absolutely. Can it lose 50% the very next day? Absolutely. How does that affect your wealth? How does that affect your income at retirement? Now, this chart shows the probabilities of not running out of money in retirement, okay? Now, think about that $1 million nest egg that we were just discussing. If you're withdrawing your money at 10% a year or $100,000 a year to live on that $1 million nest egg, you're going to run out of money in year 14. We already saw that. But if you withdraw it at a lower rate, only 8% a year, on $1 million, that's $80,000 a year. So you've just taken a pay loss or a decrease in lifestyle just so that you can make your money last a little bit longer. But check this out. On year 15, there's only a 60% chance that you won't run out of money if you're withdrawing it at 8%. On year 20, that probability drops down to 25%. That means that there's a 75% chance that you're going to run out of money before year 20 in retirement if you're spending it down at 8% a year. So, new economics now tell us that a safer withdrawal rate is in between 3 and 4% if you want your money to last you long enough in retirement. Now, think about that $1 million nest egg. If you're spending that money down at 3 to 4% a year, what is 3 to 4% of $1 million each year? That's only $30,000 to $40,000 a year. How are you going to exist on that money? How are you going to live on $30,000 to $40,000 a year if you're accustomed to living on $100,000 today? And what about inflation? And what about increased taxes? How is that going to impact your income streams at retirement? Actually, there's a white paper out there that says the real safest withdrawal rate of your money so as not to run out of money before you run out of breath is only 2.8%. 2.8% of $1 million nest egg is $28,000 a year. I don't know one person in today's economy who can exist on $28,000 a year, especially with food and fuel increasing like they are with inflation and taxes going up. Okay? This is the problem. That's really what we need to be focused on. Okay? And then the last article I wanted to show you was from Benefits Pro. It says PSCA survey, retirement plans deferral rates are at an all-time high. Now, what is a deferral rate? That's the rate at which you're going to defer income on your qualified account, your retirement plan, your 401k, IRA, and mutual fund. Participants in 401k plans of moderate means are deferring more and more of their pay to retirement plans than ever before. Why would they do that? Well, they've got this casino-like mentality now. They realize they don't have enough money to retire on, and they're having to wait longer and place higher and higher bets in the market to try and make up the difference. Nobody can afford those losses or those fluctuations in the market. Again, nobody can afford that. Nobody can afford those losses. So if you're in a market or if you're in the market and you're in a plan that is volatile or that is subject to volatility in the market, get out of it now. contact us. We can show you how to jailbreak that account, get it out of the market to where you have checkbook access and control over those funds, and you can invest those in real deals that I'm a part of and take back control of the growth and the compounding and the distribution of your nest egg. That's it for this time. We'll talk to you soon.